All right. Looks like we have a good group of people here. I just want to thank you all for being here today at our Assumption University, so our virtual admitted students week. Thank you for joining us for our health professions roundtable discussion. My name is Tyler Harrington. I'm an undergraduate admissions counselor here at Assumption. Just a few things about the presentation today. Throughout the presentation, I'm sure you guys will have a bunch of questions to our faculty, to our current students. So I just ask you just to add those into your Q&A section or the chat below during the presentation. After the presentation's over, we'll definitely revisit those. So I did mention we do a bunch of faculty here with a bunch of current students here. So I do want to introduce Dr. Kimberly Shandell. She'll be here to sort of take us through the presentation, introduce the other faculty members, the other staff members, the other students, sort of guide you through the health professions at Assumption. So Dr. Shandell, I will hand it over to you.
Great. Thanks, Tyler, and welcome everyone. We're glad you joined us today. As Tyler said, I'm Dr. Kim Shandell. I'm the Dean of the Graduate School as well as the Interim Dean of the School of Health Professions. And we have a lot to share with you today, so I'm going to just dive right in here. So at Assumption, we define the health professions very broadly. The health professions span everything from being a physician or a dentist, a physical therapist, a speech pathologist, a counselor, a social worker, and everything in between. We really do consider a broad range of health professions. And just as there are many professions that help to improve or maintain the health of individuals, there are a wide variety of ways to prepare for those careers. There's no one single career path. There are many paths that you can take to explore and eventually obtain one of these professions. And at Assumption, we'll help you figure out what your path should be. What's the best path for you based on your interests. So today, let me move forward here with one of our slides. Now I've lost my cursor. There we go. So today we'll give you a broad overview of programs that can lead to careers in the health professions. We'll also talk in general about our core curriculum, the cluster of courses that all students take, and our first year experience, which we call Compass. We'll also talk about some of the learning that goes on outside of the classroom, some of the internship experiences and other types of opportunities that our students have. And probably the highlight of the presentation today, we've invited a number of our current students to share their experiences with you. And then we've left plenty of time for your questions. So as I said, we'll start with a big overview, and I've invited some of the faculty from the Department of Biological and Physical Sciences, as well as from the Department of Human Services and Rehabilitation Studies to join me. And instead of introducing them individually now at the beginning, I'll introduce them as they speak with you. So I'm going to turn things over first to Professor Steve Theroux from the Department of Biological and Physical Sciences, and he'll be able to tell you about some of the programs offered in that department. And then he'll turn it over to Professor Christian Scannell, who will tell you about some of the programs of study in her department, which is Human Services and Rehabilitation Studies. So let me go ahead and turn it over to Professor Theroux.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Shandell. As Dr. Shandell said, there are many ways that you could prepare for a career in one of the health professions. And some of them involve the natural sciences. There are paths through the natural sciences that many people have taken in the past. So if you're interested in biology or biology with a concentration in neuroscience or biology and with a focus on biotechnology and molecular biology, or chemistry, you can major in any one of those majors and then pursue a career in one of the health professions. So typically, to end up in one of the health professions, what you absolutely have to do is complete the prerequisites that are specified by the various graduate schools. But in the process of completing the majors that I just mentioned, as well as some of the others that you'll hear more about in a moment, you would complete most, if not all, of the prereqs required for most, if not all, graduate programs related to the health sciences. There may be a few programs out there that have an odd requirement, but that you could pick up at some point if you know that you have to do that, right? So by majoring in, as I say, one of the areas that I mentioned and some of the areas that will be mentioned soon you could prepare yourself for a career in one of the many health professions. So I could say more, but I don't want to take up too much time. So I'm going to stop here and turn it back to Dr. Shandell. Kim, you're on mute. Kim, you're mute.
Thanks. You would think by now I would remember to unmute myself. Sorry about that. But let me go ahead and turn it over to Professor Scannell to tell you about some of the programs of study in human services and rehabilitation studies.
Wonderful, thank you. And thank you everyone for being here with us tonight. As you can tell, there are many commonalities that we're going to talk to you about today, right? And I'm just going to start by telling you a little bit about the couple of programs that we have with us in the Human Services and Rehabilitation Studies department, right? So first we have our Human Services major, right? And that program provides a strong foundation for work in a variety of health, disability, and human service related fields that provide services to children, adolescents, adults, and older adults, right? And it's based upon the philosophy that all humans have worth and have potential, right? And so our goal is to prepare students to really maximize the participation, inclusion, and functioning of all individuals in the community, right? So our goal is really we seek to bridge that gap between an individual's capacity, what they could do under optimal circumstances if all of the stars aligned and they had the perfect condition for functioning, right? And their current performance, what they can do in their current environment, right? And really being able to do that allows us to increase their ability to participate in all aspects of their lives, right? The same way everyone else does, and having access to and being a part of things that are really important to them, right? And oftentimes as health professionals, right, we come into the picture when people find themselves confronting barriers to getting their needs met, that their own resources for overcoming those obstacles are just not sufficient, right? And they need our support and help. Right? And so our primary goal is really, to help people to achieve self-sufficiency and to meet the goals that they have for themselves. In our program, we also have a major in health sciences, right? And this is an interdepartmental major. So it has coursework in the biological and physical sciences, as Professor Thoreau just explained to us, in rehabilitation and disability, in healthcare delivery, and in healthcare models. You can also take courses in economics, ethics, and policies, right? And really look at the things that are driving our global healthcare systems. Right? That major is really going to prepare students to work in a variety of careers in the healthcare field, including medicine, hospital administration, policy development, patient advocacy, and so much more. There are some important trends to think about that are driving occupations right now in health sciences and in human services. Right? Employment in healthcare occupations is projected to grow 18% between now and 2026, much faster than the average for all other occupations, literally adding 2.4 million jobs. So it's a really good time to be looking at an occupation in the healthcare industry. Right? We know that when we look at these things, occupations related to OT are projected to grow 24%. Employment of physical therapists is projected to grow 28%, and speech language pathologists are expected to grow 18% in the next decade. Right? And so when we look at the different concentrations that can be taken both with a human services or a health science major, and also with a major in the biological and physical sciences, right? We have our concentration in OT and PT, right? That's designed to prepare all of our students to go into a OT or PT graduate program. And as Dr. Thoreau said, right, to prepare you to meet the general requirements of the majority of those programs that you want to apply to, right? So that you're fully qualified, right, to make those graduate applications. Students who are taking a concentration in OT and PT will take 16 required courses in addition to their major courses that are specific to that field and that will be laid out with them. We also have a concentration in patient advocacy, right, that's designed to prepare students with foundational knowledge for entry-level roles in health advocacy and patient navigation, right? So we're thinking about these non-clinical graduate study programs that really explore public health, right, healthcare administration, and healthcare policy. We have a concentration in communication and speech disorders, right, that prepares students to be graduate students in the field of speech language pathology or audiology, right? And what's really unique about this program is that once students complete all of the concentrations required courses, as well as 20 hours of clinical observation under a licensed speech language pathologist or an audiologist, right, they can actually apply for licensure in the state of Massachusetts as a speech language pathology assistant. Now, other states may have different requirements, but it is a really nice program, and that it's designed for students who either want to go directly to graduate school for speech language pathology or who may want to go directly to work as a speech language pathologist assistant. And then we have a concentration in working with children and adolescents in community settings, right, that is designed to prepare students to work in community-based environments with children, with their families, right, and within the service systems that exist for them, right? So it's focused specifically on understanding how practitioners can support and strengthen, right, youth's development, right, their systems that they're existing in, and to enhance their protective factors and to help them grow resilience as they move forward. In our rehabilitation counseling master's program, students have a really unique opportunity as well to do a 6 and 5 program. And I'm a little bit biased because I did do this myself way back in the day, right? But one of the things that you can do is you can look at, right, taking graduate classes during your senior year of undergraduate. So it's an accelerated path, right, toward a graduate degree. You would complete your undergraduate program and earn a master's in rehabilitation counseling in 5 years. Right, so it allows students to really start to move down an accelerated path towards graduate school if that's something that they're interested in.
Great, thank you. So these are some of our major programs of study, but of course, we also have a core curriculum. The core curriculum is the collection of courses that all students complete, regardless of their major. And so Professor Scannell is going to continue here and tell us a little bit about the core curriculum and then the specifics of our first year program, which we call Compass. So I'll turn it back over to Professor Scannell.
Wonderful. Right, so as you start to think about this transition to college, right, we understand that it can be hard, and while that you can be very excited about this move, that it can also feel a little bit daunting, right? So in this first year, our goal is to give you some exposure, right, to a core curriculum that really allows you to have a good understanding of liberal arts and to explore a lot of what the different majors have to offer, right? I understand that a lot of you are going to come in and say, oh, I absolutely know what I want to do, right? And the reality is that 50% of you will change your mind while you're here based on getting to, explore the different classes and the different programs, right? And really getting to see what the college, has to offer. Right, so we do have a core curriculum, that focuses on 5 areas of study. Right? One is in our core seminars in English, philosophy, and theology. Right? Our person in society allows you exposure to our social science programs. Right? Our cultural and expression bucket really allows you exposure to our arts. Right? You'll have exposure to the scientific and quantitative reasoning, so your biologies and your mathematics. Right? And our great conversation really allows us exposure to a lot of really interesting and integral topics that are going on in our world. In addition to taking some of those courses during your first year, you're also going to be involved in what we call our Compass program. It's the common pursuit of academic and social success. Right, so during your first year, you can expect to take a combination of these core requirements that I just talked about, and to begin to also include some of the foundational classes and areas that you're interested in. But part of that will also be enrollment in a Compass linkage, as we call it. And what it is we create, this really nice community where you will take 2 courses that are linked together with the same group of students, right? And it's kind of ready-made social group really that centers around academics, right? It allows you to take 2 introductory courses that we purposely pair together and link students to based on their interests. And it really provides a consistent peer group, right, that can help facilitate connection, because first year new connections can be a little bit daunting, right? And to help you establish some support and dynamics that will stay with you for your entire time here at Assumption.
Great, thank you for that. So this is our core curriculum and the first year program, but obviously you're interested in the health professions. So you're also thinking about, how am I going to proceed through my 4 years at Assumption while preparing for one of the health professions? Now I'm going to turn it over again to Professor Thiru, who is our health professions pre-professional advisor for those interested in medical and dental school, as well as a few of the other professional graduate programs. He can give you an idea of how he works with students as they're preparing for admission to these graduate programs.
Thank you, Dean Shandell. So I wanted to just start off by saying that one of the aspects of Assumption that I think is particularly appealing is that when you come to Assumption, you'll be assigned an advisor. So you'll be working very closely with a faculty member right from the very start of your career here at Assumption. And so I think that you can find help at Assumption, which is one of the features that I like most about the school. And when my own children went to school, I wanted to find a place for them where that kind of thing would be happening, right? Where they would get attention from the faculty. And you can do that here. So you'll be working closely with a number of faculty, me potentially, as well as others. And what I would suggest right from the start is that if you are interested in one of the health professions, you should know starting out that the competition for admission into graduate programs is competitive. I think many of you already knew that probably, right? I mean, it's not that easy to get into medical school. You have to earn good grades. So I would say that, one of the things you should be aware of right from the beginning is that you want to try to do the best that you can, best that you can reasonably do. So you don't want to drive yourself crazy, but you want to do the best, put your best effort in. I would also encourage you to get a strong background in the natural sciences and in the health sciences. Depending on your particular choice, the prerequisites for admission to the grad program of interest might vary a little bit, as I mentioned before. But in general, most of the health professions do require some foundation in the natural sciences. So you'll be taking courses in biology, and in many cases, you might also be taking courses in chemistry and in physics and that kind of thing. So you want to make sure that you get those courses in at some point during your undergraduate career. Um, Most of the institutions that you will probably be applying to will want to see that you have some exposure to a clinical setting. They don't expect that you're going to be doing surgery, but on the other hand, they do expect that you'll have some idea of what you might be getting into. So they want to see that you've talked to people in that profession, that you have interacted with patients in some capacity. So you have some idea, again, of what the nature of the work is. The goal that the medical schools and dental schools and physical therapy and PA schools and so on, the goal of those institutions is to get someone who's going to be happy doing that job, and it's a good fit. And it's hard to know if it's a good fit for you without having any exposure at all to it. So I think it's important to try to get exposure, and there are different ways that we can try to guide you through that process of obtaining clinical exposure and working in a clinical setting. Um, Ultimately, to get into grad school, you most likely will have to take a graduate admissions test. The test varies depending on the grad program. Some people take, for example, the MCAT, the medical college admissions test. Some take the DAT, the dental admissions test. And there's a pharmacy college admissions test and so forth, right? So that each of these schools has their own test. But depending on your interest, you should prepare appropriately for the test. And so we encourage you to do that. We have a partnership with Kaplan, and over the last several years, Kaplan has had courses on campus where they prepare people to take that test. Unfortunately, in my view, they put a lot of weight on one test, and so that's the reason, though, why it's important to prepare for it, right? And so we try to facilitate that opportunity for you to prepare for that exam. Hopefully you'll get an interview, and you need to prepare for that too, right? And you should get some idea of what to expect. And we try to help you do that. We try to help you get a sense of what kinds of questions you might be asked. So you can seek out individuals and your advisor and me and others, and they will help you. And we have a career center that will help you as well if you want the help. And I would encourage you to seek out that help and try to be as prepared as possible for the interview. It makes it a little bit more enjoyable knowing that you're prepared, and hopefully you'll do well as a consequence. And then finally, if you get accepted, we hope you continue to stay in contact, because we try to have some of the students from the past help the students that are coming through. And so we hope that once you're in, that you remember us and continue to come back. And many of the people that in the past have done just that. In fact, just yesterday, this isn't really a health professions issue, but just yesterday, a student from the 90s that I taught reached out asking if he works at Moderna, and he wanted some of the biotech students to apply, because he wants to recruit some of our biotech students. So we do have that relationships that we build with people from the who have graduated in the past. And I hope that I hope that you come here, and I hope that you'll be successful, and then in your attaining your goal, and that you'll continue to work with some of the students as they come forward. Anyway, I got to stop because I don't want to take up too much more time.
Well, thank you, Professor Thierer. That's a great lead-in for Professor Chintzia Pinka-Smith, who is a professor in the Department of Human Services and Rehabilitation Studies. And she's going to give us kind of a broad overview of what we call four-year roadmap, how you might want to approach your college career. So Professor Pinka-Smith, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, and I'm so glad to be with all of you this evening. Thank you for joining us. Well, I suppose I'll begin with sharing with you that I think that one of the things that is unique to the Assumption University experience overall, and to our school and our department, is the relationship that students forge with professors and their academic advisors. I think that we've thought really well about how to create an infrastructure of support, a pipeline of academic and vocational mentorship, if you will. First of all, though, I think we don't talk enough about this in higher education, even though it's so important. What an infrastructure of support provides at its foundation, and certainly what I wanted to know when I was a parent launching my own children into a college experience, is that professors and academic advisors were thinking about my children's psychological and emotional well-being, right? And I don't know if there are any parents listening in over the shoulders of students who are attending tonight. But that was very, very important. And I think that that's incredibly important in this moment, right? This pandemic moment. I don't have to tell you, the students attending tonight, that learning, being a student this year was incredibly difficult. And I think that we know that as professors. And I think that at Assumption, we do an exceptionally good job understanding students as whole persons, and that we understand that well-being is as important as academic goals, as your academic goals and your vocational goals. And we're cognizant of that. Our advising, our mentorship has been so much this year about supporting our students' well-being, as it has been about shepherding them through their academic programs. I believe that we have a four-year experience that intensively supports, accompanies, guides students from their most basic needs. You know, you're going to have questions about, you know, what courses do I need to plan to complete my core, as Professor Scannell was talking about? What courses do I need to plan to make sure that I complete my major or my concentration? You'll have those questions, but you'll also have questions about your vocational discernment. You know, as Professor Scannell said, many students will change their plans about majors and concentration. You'll have questions about graduate school. And a unique feature about the Assumption experience is that students will create a relationship, an authentic relationship with their advisors. You will meet with your advisor personally at least once a semester. And that doesn't happen at every institution, right? There are institutions where you might meet your advisor once or twice for the entire 4 years that you're there. And you will see us every semester, at least once. And as an advisor, we think our job goes far beyond course schedules and planning for courses every semester. Advisors will mentor students, prepare students to do well while at Assumption College and beyond the border, at Assumption University and beyond the borders of the university walls. Scaffolding, internship, summer internship programs, summer employment opportunities that will support your vocational and career goals. And then, you know, beyond the relationship that you'll have with your academic advisor, we also, in our department, in the Human Services and Rehabilitation Studies, have a dedicated internship coordinator. Her name is Susan Sabelli. And Ms. Sabelli meets with students, also meets with students individually to help them find an ideal internship experience. She is very knowledgeable. She's been at Assumption for over 30 years in her role, over 2 decades, and she knows the community well. And her role is to place students in internship sites where they will practice. And this internship helps students, again, to discern where they will eventually want to practice. And sometimes the internship also helps to exclude contexts that students previously thought that they might want to work in. And then they realize, no, this is not exactly the field or the context that I thought I wanted to work in. And then finally, we have institutionally available to all students, we have a career development and internship center. And again, this is an institution-wide hub which helps students in myriad ways, including individual career counseling, networking events. They sponsor drop-in resume and cover letter clinics. They conduct clinics to prepare students to make use of LinkedIn. They prepare students to engage in graduate school and job interview. They do job interview preparation, like they conduct mock interviews. They also do postgraduate service opportunities. And so we really do think that we have wraparound services and support systems that scaffold our students' success, both while they're here for the 4-year experience and beyond.
Okay, great. Thank you, Professor Pika-Smith. And now for the part of our presentation today that you're probably most looking forward to. We're going to hear from some of our current students. And I've asked one of the professors to introduce each of the students so that you can get a sense of how our faculty and students do work together. We've been speaking about that, but here's your opportunity to see how that really works. So we're going to throw it back to Professor Pika-Smith so she can introduce Chrissy.
Sure. So I am so delighted to introduce Chrissy Golden, who I had the fortune to cross paths with when she was my student in a course focused on prevention and intervention models in working with youth. And Chrissy was hardworking, competent, and was incredibly interested in thinking about deficit discourses of working class and poor children and families. And she just took a deep dive into this topic and then approached me about a year later and asked me if I would be her honors thesis advisor and mentor. And for the last 3 semesters, we have been working very closely, sometimes having weekly meetings on her honors thesis. And I'm just delighted to introduce her to you.
Hi, everyone. As Dr. Pika-Smith said, my name is Chrissy Golden. Just a little bit about me. I'm from Clinton, Mass. I went to school in Wayland, right near Boston. I am a senior who is a human services major. I have a concentration in working with youth and adolescents in community settings. And And I chose to come to Assumption for a lot of reasons. I was an athlete. I ran track here for 6 seasons. So that was a large part of why I came here. And there's really something to be said about, I think like 60% of the students here are athletes. So it's it really is like being on this huge team. And everyone, including the professors and the students, is just always looking out for everyone. And I really liked that. I really liked the community here. And when I started coming here, I loved that the class sizes were smaller, so I had the opportunity to develop really strong relationships with a lot of my professors. And I liked that a lot because I like to feel like people remember my name, like I'm not just another face out of like a billion other students. And I was also really excited by the opportunities that I was afforded by the honors program here. So I was looking forward to writing my thesis at the end of my 4 years here because I just wanted to have that opportunity to go in depth about something that I became passionate about over my 4 years here. I came here thinking that I was going to be an education major. Clearly that didn't happen. I thought that the only way to become a school counselor or an adjustment counselor was to go on the education track. And I was wrong, which I realized once I started developing relationships with a lot of my professors, and they were like, no, actually, we think because you are like community oriented, that social working is probably going to be the track that you end up taking. So maybe think about the human services major. I also thought I was going to be a psych major, but then I realized that I really liked my human services classes. As Professor Scannell said at the beginning, I really liked that the human services program focused on the strengths that an individual had and the capabilities that they had and the pre-existing strengths in communities, instead of just focusing on what was wrong and what needed to be fixed. So that's how I ended up in human services. And as I ended up in human services, as Dr. Peekesmith said, I developed a really strong interest in poor communities and working class communities and the kind of frameworks that are used when we speak about them, even as a profession, but also just in general. And because I was in the honors program, I was able to really foster this interest. And I approached Dr. Peekesmith and asked her to be my advisor because the class that I took with her, there were only 6 people in it. So through that class size, it really allowed me to develop a very strong relationship with her. And I trusted her and her knowledge, and I'd read some of her research in this class, which was also really cool. That's another thing about Assumption that's really cool, is that the professors will present their own work, and because of the small class size, you have the ability to ask them questions as you're reading through it. And because it's their own work, they have like really detailed and really interesting responses because it's the research that they have conducted. So I approached her, and we have been working on this thesis for like a year now, maybe even longer. And I'm just really grateful that I was able to get this opportunity from Assumption. I think that had I gone to school somewhere else, I maybe wouldn't have had the relationship that I have with Dr. Peekesmith, and I maybe wouldn't have approached her, or I wouldn't have had all the opportunities I've had to have lengthy discussions with her about the subject matter. And as she said, they do a really good job of focusing on students' psychological well-being as well. So I just always felt supported and heard and seen by all of my professors here. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Great. Thank you, Chrissy. And really, we didn't pay her to say those things. I had no clue what she was going to say, but I think she summed up a lot of the experiences that many of our students have. But let's hear from another student now. I'm going to turn it over to Professor Gary Senecal, who's also a faculty member in the Human Services and Rehabilitation Studies Department, and he's going to introduce Madison.
Hey, everybody. Welcome and good to meet you all virtually here. I'm going to introduce Madison Robitaille. I'm delighted to introduce Madison to you all today. Madison is a senior here at Assumption, majoring in health sciences. She also has a concentration in preclinical studies. Like Chrissy, she is a varsity athlete here at Assumption as a member of the women's golf team. And she will be attending some optometry school in the fall. However, she doesn't know which one yet because she's been accepted to 6. So she has quite a decision on her hands here in the next coming weeks. And welcome. And I'm delighted to introduce Madison to tell her story to you all.
Hi, everyone. So like Gary said, my name is Madison Robitaille. I'm from Blackstone, Massachusetts, so I'm not too far away from home, but far enough. And I have a major in health sciences with a concentration in preclinical studies. And the option of this major was one of the biggest factors that drew me to Assumption. I think it's important to recognize that literally everything that Chrissy said is I'm in agreement with. There truly is a sense of community. I love the size of the classrooms. I have strong relationships with my professors as well. I've utilized office hours. I can't even tell you how many numbers of times, but I can't agree more with everything she said. But besides that, having the option of a health science major isn't something that I saw in a lot of the colleges that I was looking at. And I just wanted to talk about the benefit of that. So having a health science major with this concentration of preclinical studies is very similar to a biology major, but I think it's even better because it not only covers all of the bases for my optometry schools, besides one course, which is calculus, and I'm taking that now as an elective, but it also incorporates an internship into the major. So I really loved that option because I'm someone who needs to try something to know that I like it. And I'm a very indecisive person. So coming into college, I knew that I wanted to do something in the science fields, but I had no idea what. I thought I wanted to be a nurse, and then I thought I wanted to be a vet, and I thought I wanted to be a radiologist, and all of that got thrown out. And it wasn't until my junior year actually that I was taking a human anatomy course, and we got to the topic of eyes and vision, and I was just fascinated. So I ended up reaching out to one of my professors who explained to me the differences between optometry and ophthalmology, and just talked to me about admissions process in general. And he actually had connections at MCPHS, which is one of the graduate schools that offers an optometry program. And he offered to have me sit in on one of their classes to figure out if I would be interested in this field and attending that school. So needless to say, I'm extremely interested, and that's what I chose. So for my internship, I'm currently placed at Bello Opticians in Worcester. It's just a 10-minute drive from school, and I go there 3 times a week. It has been an amazing experience. I have learned so much from shadowing the doctor in the office. He's even training me on some of the equipment there, and they have offered me a job for the summer prior to graduate school. So I'll be continuing working there and learning more before I even get to grad school. And I also wanted to talk about how Assumption helped me with the whole admissions process for optometry school. So like I said, the internship looks really good on applications. They love to talk about that in the interviews. And I don't know about you guys, but I have literally never interviewed with anyone before. So I had no idea what to expect going into this. So I reached out to the CDIC and I had several meetings and I got a lot of tips and I was handed a list of here are the most common questions that optometry school will probably ask you during your interview. So I was really able to prepare for those tough questions, those curveball questions, and I was able to do really well in my interviews. Um, also, as Professor Thoreau mentioned, there was an admissions test for optometry school. It's called the OAT, and it's a 5-hour test, and I was super stressed out about it. But all of the topics that were covered in the OAT were literally all courses that I took as a part of my major. So I had already pretty much learned everything that was going to be on the test, and I just needed to review for it. So I ended up doing just fine on the test. So my next step is to attend optometry school in the fall. And like Gary said, I haven't actually decided yet. I was accepted to 6 of them, but I really can't thank Assumption enough and the staff enough because I don't think I could have done it without them. So I just can't thank them enough.
Wonderful. Thanks, Madison. And congratulations, 6 schools. That's quite impressive.
Thank you.
So I'm going to turn it back to Professor Senecal again to introduce Luke.
Hey again, everybody. Okay, I'm good. I'm delighted to introduce Luke Whitehouse to you all. I've had the good fortune of having Luke in 2 classes over the past year. Through the pandemic, I've had him in these classes, and he's been a wonderful student. Really a delight on a regular basis to have in class. Like Christy and Madison, he is a member of the men's varsity tennis team. He's also involved in the Student Athlete Advisory Council Committee here at Assumption. He is a human services major with a concentration in occupational therapy. And he will be working at Nelson Place School in Worcester as an instructional assistant after graduation, where he will be bothered by my children on a regular basis. But besides that, Luke is a delight to have worked with, and I'm here to introduce him so he can tell you his story.
Hi, everyone. Like Gary said, my name is Luke. I'm a senior at Assumption, and I just kind of wanted to talk about how I found my HRS major because it wasn't the most direct route. I actually came into Assumption as an undecided major, or not even a major, just undecided. And I was on the business track, more of a marketing management track. And my first semester, I took Intro to Marketing and Intro to Management. And I realized that it just really wasn't for me. I had a preconception of what the whole business world was like and what classes were like. And I just realized it wasn't for me. And actually through my Compass linkage, I was talking to a friend I met in there, and she was telling me all about human services and all of that. And I actually went to the CDIC, and they have pamphlets in the CDIC when we were in person. I'm sure it's all online now. But there was pamphlets about each major and kind of the coursework and kind of the opportunities that it could open for you. And I read the pamphlet and was instantly sold. And I saw that also that there was opportunities for concentrations. So I really looked into the concentrations and found PT first. I was really into the PT side of it. My aunt's a PT, and I heard a lot about it. And I talked to my advisor at the time and some of the professors, and they were always supporting me in every decision I made through all the switches. And I found PT. And then, as you can see, I'm an OT major. I kind of did a little switcheroo again and realized that PT wasn't necessarily for me. I found that OT was really more based on, the relationships that you make with your clients and that you continue to work with your clients. It's really focusing on the human side of it. And I realized that that was for me. So as you can see, I took a few turns here and there throughout my college career. But the most important thing that I found from it was that no matter what, everyone supported me at Assumption through it. and they gave me the tools to make it as easy as possible. My advisor is actually Professor Scannell, and she has been a rock for me. She's really helped me through making sure that I was getting all my core requirements done. I was getting all of my OT concentration coursework done, and so on and so forth. And another key thing that I think that I took from this was how Assumption opens opportunities for you to be able to make these switches and explore different things that you might not necessarily think or know about. So that's definitely what I took away from Assumption, is just the unconditional support I got and the opportunities that came from it. And just quickly to speak on some of the opportunities that came to me. So like Gary said, my internship is current. I'm actually a current intern at Nelson Place School. So that's how I found out about the job. And I've just been interning there. And if Susan Sabelli was here, she can tell you I was stressing because I did not want to be in a school setting. That's kind of the last setting I saw myself in. Um, and it was kind of hard because it's through a pandemic and it's all online, and it's kind of hard to be an intern and interject yourself into the school year in the middle of the year as a class is already run. But so I started my internship, and as I started to get going, and then I eventually got to go in person, I just realized how much I loved it. My preconception of schools were completely off, and I realized that's a completely different job than I thought it was, and a job that I really loved. And they actually gave me the opportunity to continue as a staff member with them after the school, to continue, finishing the school year with them and continuing them with them in the fall. So that is what I plan on doing. And I think just the key points that I've found from Assumption is just how much support, and like everyone has said, the community that I've felt at Assumption. So you'll definitely feel that support if you choose to come here.
Great, thanks, Luke. And I think your story also highlights how wonderful it is to work with students who are open to suggestions or to trying something new or different, or at least exploring it. And I think that that's a great part of your story too. So let me turn it back over to Professor Scannell, and she can introduce Rachel.
Wonderful, thank you. So in addition to getting exposure to Luke's journey, I've also had the great pleasure of advising Rachel Poisson for the last 4 years here at Assumption as well. And one of the things that's really nice about being an academic advisor is getting to see these moments where our students truly, find their path forward and blossom, into confident, excited humans about the, jobs that they're going to be doing. And not only has Rachel worked really hard to pursue her degree in HSRS and a pre-PT concentration. Rachel's currently working on an independent study with me, doing some research that she's going to present at our academic symposium next week. So without further ado, I will let Ray tell you her journey at Assumption.
Hi, my name is Rachel. A little bit about me. I'm from Newton, Mass, so I'm like right outside of Boston. I moved around a lot when I was a kid because my dad was doing a lot of work for the Navy and for the Army. So when I was looking at colleges, the number one thing for me was like, I kind of like to talk a lot in class. Like I'm a very interactive, like hands-on person. I need to ask a lot of questions. So I knew I wanted like a small class size. And Assumption had that. Like, I don't think I've had any classes over like 30 students. And for me, like, I really love PT. Like mathier subjects, like harder sciences have been a little bit difficult for me. So office hours have just been huge, especially when I was taking anatomy and physiology. Having the option to go in and like redo my labs, like having the teacher like right there to help me was just huge. I know every week when I was in anatomy, I'd come in, like I had my lab on Tuesdays and then I'd go in on Thursday and I'd redo my lab again. And that's how I passed the class, and I love it. And I was just so thankful for that support. So yeah, utilize office hours. Like the class sizes are small for a reason. We're here to help you guys. So I knew I wanted to go to PT. I know I wanted to go into physical therapy, probably since like high school. I've been a rowing coach for the past 4 years. And I've worked with a lot of para and military athletes. So like in my coaching experience, I've been able to look back on what I've been learning in class, and I've been able to apply that like in my job. I know when I was designing a workout program for some of my military athletes, I was like, oh man, like I've been coaching this move wrong. Like what I've been learning in school has directly applied to my job, and it's been able to make me a better coach. Um, and additionally, I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about my human services major and my internship. Uh, the main reason I chose human services was because of the 500-hour internship that was offered. Like I said previously, I really like kind of that hands-on experience. So my freshman year, when I was sitting down with Professor Scannell, I'm like, I can't choose really between health sciences and human services. And she's like, well, which one kind of speaks to you more? And I'm like, well, I think that 500-hour internship looks like really good because I want to be able to like apply to physical therapy school knowing this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. So just this last year, I was really, really lucky to get an internship during the pandemic. And I worked full time at Back on Track Physical Therapy in Waltham, and it was just awesome. And like I said, I had so many of those moments where I'm like, oh wow, I've been teaching this type of like exercise wrong. This is so cool. It was just so great to see kind of everything like hands on right there in the classroom. So post graduation, I'm really happy because I'm looking to leave for boot camp June 9th. And I've just really wanted to thank Assumption because I've been able to rely on all of my professors and my advisor, Professor Scannell, for everything really. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, Rachel. I didn't realize we had so many student athletes on our panel. And just so our guests don't get the wrong impression, a significant proportion of our student body do participate in a varsity sport. I think it's around 30% of the student body. So it's not everybody, just happens to be, we've got very athletic and students on our panel today. And now we have one more student to speak, and I will ask Professor Thieber to introduce Anne.
Hi again. It's my great pleasure to introduce Anne Guadalupe. She is a current student in my biotechnology class, and she's majoring in biotechnology and molecular biology and minoring in Italian studies. Anne is just an exceptionally gifted student. She really is truly unusual in her ability. And so it's been fun to work with her, frankly. I mean, we read papers together, and she notices things that I miss, and we work on projects of that kind in class, and it's great. I have a good time. And it's been really fun to work with, and she's, as I say, a great student. And she's also a great athlete and has won many awards for both her academic as well as her athletic achievements. So we have one more athlete that you're going to hear from. Anne has been recently accepted to medical school, and so she has that as an option if she decides to pursue that. And I'll just turn it over now to Anne and let her tell you a little bit more about her experience here.
Thank you so much for your kind words, Professor Thoreau. So hi, everyone. My name is Anne, and I'm from Augusta, Maine. I graduated from Coney High School in 2017, which was almost 4 years ago. So, yep, I'm definitely a senior, and I can't believe that, I was standing in your shoes 4 years ago, because I definitely remember those days. So my major is called Biotechnology and Molecular Biology. And I am also completing a minor in Italian studies. So when I was in your spot 4 years ago, well, maybe a bit before, I didn't know much about Assumption until I attended my college fair at my high school. So one of my good teammates had attended Assumption, but she was a couple years older than me. So it didn't cross my mind, like Assumption didn't cross my mind, but as soon as I came across it at the college fair, I was like, this can definitely be a potential option for me. So I looked into Assumption more and what it offered, and I realized it was actually a great option. It had a great swim team with a passionate coach and supportive teammates. I had actually did a recruiting trip and got a little bit of taste of Assumption even before I started my freshman year. It also, I don't know if you guys know this, but like Assumption has a campus in Rome and has an Italian program, which I have Italian ancestry on my side, so definitely interested in that. And the reason why we're here, Assumption has a great science community with resources to help me reach my post-grad goals, which is medicine. So when I was first signing up for classes the summer before my freshman year at Assumption, biotechnology was suggested to me as a possible major because it fulfilled many of the prereqs that someone would need to have to apply to the average medical school. And that was super important to me because I knew going into my freshman year that I did want to go to medical school. So I ended up committing wholeheartedly to biotechnology at the very beginning. And I always say like biology or biotechnology is kind of like a focused biology major. So we have a lot of the same core requirements of a bio major, but there are some mandatory classes like biotechnology, of course, biochemistry, and biomedical ethics course. So the last one is a philosophy course that addresses many of the difficult ethical cases in the world of scientific and clinical medicine. And this course reached out to me as part of like the human aspect of medicine. So, you know, a lot of the students before who spoke kind of addressed this human aspect, and that ethical class was an important course for me. Overall, the biotechnology major has been a great choice because it's not only going to advance my career as a clinician, hopefully as a physician, but it's also going to give me a lot of insight into research, specifically medical research. So if I have the option, if I don't pursue medical school right away, I can go right into research, which is an important component if you are interested in applying to med school. So a little bit about my medical school process. I started with extracurriculars outside of Assumption, as far as like work in the hospital and volunteering, because those are important components in your application that you need to grow to be a competitive applicant. But my junior year is when I really started focusing towards improving my application even further, which included studying for that dreaded MCAT. I took the Kaplan MCAT prep course that Professor Thoreau mentioned at the beginning. That was incredibly helpful because it offered a guide towards my studying. And I also had other students with me that attended Assumption, but also were students that had taken gap years in the community. And I got to know a little bit about them as well. So very community oriented as I was studying for the MCAT. So then that summer, I actually had planned to take, so this is the summer before my senior year, I had actually planned to complete a 10-week research project on pregnancy-associated breast cancer with a mentor, a biology professor at Assumption. And this was what I was going to write my honors thesis on. However, because of COVID, I wasn't able to complete this research project, which I was very disappointed in, but that's, you know, we have to accept that COVID has thrown us some curveballs in these past few months. So I continued working at my local job in Augusta and continued to work on my med school application throughout that summer. So as Professor Thoreau said, I have the option of attending the military medical school in Bethesda, Maryland. It's quite a commitment, so I'm still thinking that through and what it means to commit many of my years to the Army, but it's something that I'm super excited to continue thinking about. And if I don't choose that, I have so many more options because of the major that I chose and what Assumption has given me throughout this time here. So that's a brief rundown of my college career, and I am, of course, happy to answer any questions that you guys may have.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Anne. You know, I realize I just looked at my watch that we have gone over time by quite a bit, but I really appreciate you sticking with us. And we're more than happy to answer any questions that you have. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. I think Tyler's going to help me here with questions.
For sure. So if anybody has any questions about the presentation, about Assumption, anything that was just talked about, you guys can throw it in the chat. I mean, right now we have a pretty small group. You guys can unmute yourself and kind of ask a question if you wanted to as well. But right now is really your time to ask any questions to our students, to our faculty, really anything. So I think we already have one. How is the school prepared to help a student who is interested in pursuing a dental career was the first question.
We should ask Professor Thierer to answer that one.
Sure.
Yeah, so people who are interested in going to dental school typically major in one of the sciences or the health science with a preclinical concentration. In the process of completing those majors, you'll end up completing most, if not all, of the prerequisites for dental school. And so we work with you. You'll, as I said, get an advisor. You can certainly come see me. I'm the health professions advisor, and we would work with you to guide you through this process. We've had many students who have gone to dental school, and so it's not an uncommon outcome for students from Assumption to pursue that route.
Great, thanks.
Great. So the next question is, are there simulation labs utilized in the health sciences majors?
I'll try to answer that one, but if anyone else wants to jump in, feel free. So when you say simulation labs, we have labs that I'm thinking like of some of the physiology labs, and maybe actually I should let one of the students speak to this. Maybe Anne or Rachel or I forgot someone else was, or Madison was talking about anatomy. Maybe you guys want to jump in with.
Are you referring to dissections? Are you asking if they're like actual dissections or if they are simulation?
It's not clear.
What's
Go
up?
ahead, Amanda.
Typing. I was just like wondering about the simulation labs in the new health sciences building. Because I know like nursing students use those, but I wasn't sure if the health science major will also use those.
Well, I can say that the simulation labs there are simulation labs for those in the nursing program where they have computers simulated individuals that you would work with. But those highly expensive computer simulating labs are really for the nursing majors. But we have labs where you actually do a lot of hands-on activity in various biology or chemistry areas. I think the answer is that we don't actually have like live simulation dummies in the biology department, but we have them in the PA and the nursing department.
Yeah, and so the health sciences major, where it comes together in an interdisciplinary nature, is that the health science courses are, classes like Intro to Public Health, looking at the healthcare system, legal and ethical aspects of healthcare, right? So really the healthcare component. Then we have the biological and physical science courses, which Dr. Thoreau just talked about, that picks up our laboratory environments and our simulation environments. And then there are a host of human service and disability courses that make up that third piece. And so the simulation piece of the health sciences being in the lab experience really comes from the biological and physical science component of that major.
Yeah, in the laboratory environment, I mean, you want to be able to work with test tubes and living creatures and that kind of thing. So, I mean, ideally, we work with more living people in the nursing department, but we don't. It's a limit to what you can do with people who are alive, if you want to. So.
Great. So we don't have any more questions in the chat. So if there's any more questions, we can definitely take them. But if not, I just want to thank you all for being here today. I know we've all been in a lot of Zoom sessions for a year now. So I really appreciate you guys hopping onto this one. So thank you again.